Hello, welcome to Inside.net Academy. My name's Vincent,
And I'm Nick.
and last time we talked about the introduction about the real estate financial management application. And today, as we said before, we're going to delve in a little bit deeper on how we implemented the dependency injection pattern.
So before we start, I'm going to show you around the backend a bit, so you know where we are when we are talking about it. At first we're going to talk about the global SX file. In the global SX file, we're going to use our bootstrapper, which will call certain things to prepare our Unity container. We're also going to use different types of services, dummy services and implementation services. We're going to use dummy services as test services and implementation services as real services, depending on what we want to do. We're going to use our dependency injection container to store our data. In our global SX file, when the VCF services are about to start, the sub application start will run. The application start will call our function that we've written in our own class that we call bootstrapper, and this will execute. The run method of the bootstrapper contains configure container. Our configure container is what we use to configure our Unity container. Here we declare a new Unity container, we register a type of repository, and from the webconfig file we're going to get a boolean from test settings. This will basically give us true or false, depending on if we want to go to a test service, a dummy service, which gives back, for example, a list of objects, or if we want a real service that will go to the database. So, depending on if this boolean is true or false, we'll either go to the function test registration or production registration. If you go to test registration, we're going to say to our container, well, register the type of iTenant service, for example, to dummy tenant service. What this will do is when later on, if we call a resolve on our container and we want the type iTenant service, it'll know, oh, you want iTenant service, I'll give you the dummy tenant service. Or in case if it is false and we really want to go to the database, it'll go to production registration, and at production registration it'll say, alright, you want the iTenant service, you'll get the tenant service, the real one. After we've gone through this if and else and end if statement, we'll go and say to our DI container, which is a static class that we've made ourselves, and we're going to say okay, load with, and we're going to say, alright, this container equals the container we filled in at our bootstrapper. So from now on, if we're going to call the container, we'll have this container that we've created right here. When we're going to use this container, will most likely be in the real service, the SVC file. For this example, we're going to say, okay, get all tenants. We want to return all the tenants, and depending on what we've entered in the webconfig file, we're either going to work with a real tenant service or a fake tenant service. Here we say DI container, please resolve me an iTenant service. This will give us from the DI container, we'll call a resolve, and this resolve will give us the type tenant service, for example, if we're really going to the database, and we'll get the following functions, we'll get the following service. Now back to our real SVC file, we're going to see that we declare the service, use DI container resolve of this type, and then we can call the function of the service of this type. The iTenant service has all the basic subs or functions, basically methods that we need from our services, both if we are going to use dummy service or the real service. Both the real and the dummy service, of course, implement the iTenant service. When making a new tenant service, you might have noticed that we need a repository when declaring a new one, but we never actually declare a new repository. So how do we do this? Dependency injection takes care of it for us. When we declare a service here, we never really give a repository, but as you might remember from our bootstrapper, we say unity container register type of iRepository get entity object context repository. So whenever we go like, okay, public sub new repository as iRepository, it'll fill in this one for us. It'll say, alright, you need a repository, here is your repository, an entity object context repository.
So as you can see, having a proper and decent dependency injection implementation has saved us a lot of time, and it isn't that hard to write.
So this was it for today. I hope you learned something from it, and I hope you use dependency injection like we did to help your program get along.
Exactly, it saves us a lot of time, as I mentioned before. Next time, we're going to talk about how we implemented the wizard in our application, and all the other subjects are going to be covered by some of our colleagues. I guess it's better if we leave it to them. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.
See you.